college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. As you can see, I am once again flying solo like a cup because Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com, is getting his ass kicked like Ed Henry by the flu. He wanted to be on the show today, but he's like, I'm going to be coughing every 30 seconds when he talks. So hopefully he'll be on the program here Sunday for Monday's episode. Been a while. He's got tales to tell, and apparently I do after dog sitting. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give this thing a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. It would really, really help us out. Really helps the show grow and everything like that. But let's not dilly dally. Let's not mess around anymore. Let's get started with our first and 15 today, which is we're going to be coming to you live from Eric Crouch's couch. My way too early Heisman Trophy ballot for next season. I came across a list of candidates for it this year, and I thought about this because it's a nice primer to kind of think about who could be on my ballot if I had one. We had all the guys last year, but you got to remember, Fernando Mendoza's in the NFL. Jeremiah Love is in the NFL. Diego Pavia's out of eligibility. So the only guy who was a finalist that's going to be a returning candidate is Julian Sand. Do I have him on my ballot? We'll see. Let's find out. So again, the way that this works is you only get to vote for 3 players, first, second, and third place, and then they combine all the ballots and see how it goes. In third place, at number 3, I've got my quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, out of Georgia. Look, if Georgia wins the SEC again and he plays up to this standard, he's going to be a finalist for the Heisman. This is going to be his last year in college football, presumably. I also think that the chances of him winning SEC Player of the Year are exponential because not only is Diego Pavia gone, but so is Trinidad Chambliss. And although there's people out there who may, honking on the horn for Arch Manning and everything like that, we got to see him put together a strong uh, full season. He's been really great at moments. And in time, maybe Arch Manning could be a candidate. If I were to do this, I'm sure Cody would have put him number 1 because he is infatuated with Texas as much as he loves not being on the show right now. And this is the blogging podcast. So this is false start. I did blogging earlier. Definitely check that out. I got to address, the James Pierce Jr. Legal situation, Kirk Cousins being gone. It was a great time, but definitely if you listen to the show, definitely subscribe and check that show out as well. It's a good time. I'm just of the belief with Gunnar Stockton here that, again, if Georgia does what I think it can do and potentially contend for a national championship, you're going to kind of be on that same sort of threshold as, Stetson Bennett, where it's kind of like a career achievement award, but I think you can put up better numbers. And again, within the context of the Georgia offense, it's not about putting up stats or embarrassing the opposition. It's about winning. He'd rather hand the ball off to win the game. I mean, we saw him take a knee versus Florida. We could have scored another touchdown. But I think if he refines a little bit more as a passer, and frankly, he's going to have to because he loses a lot of receivers to the NFL draft. I saw today that Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell, and Colby Young all got invites to the combine. Noah Thomas, not so much, but he's kind of a draft eligible player as well. We'll see what happens there. But I think Stockton could make serious headway there. At number 2, I've got the best player on Ohio State. That's wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Look, this guy is probably going to be the first player taken who's not a quarterback in 2027. He is the much younger cousin of former, Seahawks and Jets, and I guess Raiders quarterback Geno Smith, former West Virginia star. He's electrifying, and I think a lot of the things that have been hurting him in years past has been the likes of, Ohio State has 2 players there, but I think he's the best wide receiver they've ever had. I know we talked a lot about Marvin Harrison Jr. and how great he was. He's kind of fizzled out with the Cardinals. Jackson Smith and Jigba really had that one game versus Utah, but he's been sensational in the NFL, and he's a Super Bowl champion. And then obviously Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave just went to crap NFL franchises. They put up their numbers and stuff, but like at the same time, maybe they were a product of the system a little bit there at Ohio State. Also, you kind of wonder, if Jeremiah Smith's going to be able to succeed anyway without Brian Hartline there in Columbus. I think he can, and I think he will. But at number 1 right now for me, I think without a question, that's going to be Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. We've seen Bo Nix be a contender for it. We've seen Dylan Gabriel be a contender for it. We saw Marcus Mariota win it. I think Dante Moore is just the most talented quarterback Oregon's had in a very long time, probably since Justin Herbert. But even he didn't get to go to the Heisman ceremony because Oregon didn't win enough. I think with Dante Moore being in the Big Ten, I think him playing quarterback, I think him being on a team that we feel is going to be a lock to make the playoff in Oregon. And even though I'm not super high on the Ducks ever winning a national championship, I'd be foolish to not say that they're one of the eight best programs in the country because they do everything right at a top eight level. Can you be top one or two in a given year? Again, that remains to be seen. What's really important to understand here is look, he is losing both of the coordinators of note off of Oregon's team. Will Stein's taking over at Kentucky, and then Tosh Lupoi is leaving on defense to go take over at Cal. So when you lose both coordinators, both your guy who's in your ear calling plays for you, and then the guy who gets you the ball back on defense, that's going to be that's going to be challenging. But even in that event, I think that Moore is just so talented that like he's going to take advantage of the rest of college football. I mean, we thought higher of him this past year than we did Fernando Mendoza 2 years ago, and Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy going away, more so than Pavia. Again, I don't know how much it would be saying comparatively, but I just kind of feel like the narrative that the players want to see or the voters want to see for Heisman, that would be Dante Moore. He plays for the right team, he plays the right position, the right league. And Dan Lanning's not afraid to run up the score. He loves doing that. It's in his blood. That's what they do at Oregon. And this is a false start. But again, I may come full circle. And that being said, I'm going to hold all three of these guys to an incredibly high standard next year. But with it being Moore, with it being Stockton at quarterback, with it being Smith outside the numbers, and again, anybody else who I think could potentially be a finalist here. And again, if I could kick this out to five, at four I'd have Arch Manning, and at five I'd probably have Julian Sand, the Texas and Ohio State quarterback. I think that for them to win the award, they have to be absolutely exceptional because they had the 5 star and the accolades and everything like that. Yeah, Moore did too. Stockton didn't. So I guess same with CJ Carr, if we want to throw him in that realm as well. You got to be just you're on the teams that everybody thinks can win the national championship. And if you don't do that and you go 9-3, get out of here. And I will say this. I would say about every other year I vote for the Heisman correctly. Eventually I do come around with some guys, but like I would have given it to Ashton Jeanty 2 years ago for Travis Hunter. That was harder. I don't care that he played both ways. And I will say this, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, or as blue as this circle is on my stroke shirt. I'm not gonna have a stroke on the show here, but that is neither here nor there. At this day and age, if you are going to win the Heisman, you need to take your team to the playoff. There's enough teams that can get in, and even if you're at 10-2 at Vanderbilt, where you're close enough, you got to get your team to the playoff. Otherwise, I don't really think you're going to win it. I don't think you deserve to. I don't think you won enough. It's the same sort of thing like, in the NFL, you got to have a playoff team. You probably need to have a Final Four team to be straight with me. That's why Matthew Stafford won it. You know, and I know people who say stats are everything. Like the people who voted for, Andre Dawson, the last place team, or Mike Trout, like you can get out of town. Like, what are we doing? Like, you need to be because you need to have the best player on a team that won a lot of games because that's the narrative, that's the capstone for the season. I don't want a compiler. That's not what college football is about. It's a team sport, and the Heisman reflects the team. So you need at this day and age, you got to be a playoff team. Probably got to be a quarterback, maybe running back, maybe wide receiver. Again, I don't really know, but you got to be of that ilk. So my Heisman ballot is right now way too early. Dante Moore out of Oregon at one, Jeremiah Smith two out of Ohio State, three I've got Gunnar Stockton out of Georgia. My first two out would be Arch Manning out of Texas at four, and then Julian Saint five out of Ohio State as well. So that's what I got right there for my first to 15 coming to you live from Eric Crouch's couch. Let's get on with some TIN 10. This is going to be dumb. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm probably going to tie my tongue into a knot here before I go have some dinner. 10 college football topics that have given me pause heading into next year. Like things that I sit here and I'm like, I'm not so sure about. And this is important, and I really want to have this discussion with Cody, and maybe we will return and do this at some other point. But this is just kind of planting the seeds for what's going to happen next year. So I'm just going to say 10 things that I'm a little bit like, are we so sure this is okay? At number 10, I've got what if Texas doesn't win the SEC? Look, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really matters as long as Texas makes the college football playoff, it wins the college football playoff. Now, if they do so winning the SEC, that's great. And if they win the SEC and they don't win a national championship, I mean, that is a step in the right direction. But we can't continue to see Steve Sarkisian at Texas in the SEC. You're not winning the SEC, you're not winning national championships. Maybe you're winning a bowl game as part of the playoff, but like you got to be a champion. And again, this is the standard that we want to hold Texas to. Look, I understand this is probably going to be Arch Manning's last year in Austin. And if he does, it's great. If not, don't worry about it. I mean, you also have to remember Eli Manning, Archie Manning, and Peyton Manning didn't win a Heisman Trophy and they didn't win a national championship when they're in school. So keep that in mind. This is more about Steve Sarkisian. If we want to put him in that same conversation with the best coaches in the sport, whether that's Curt Cignetti, Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, or it used to be Dabo Swinney, Ryan Day, if you want to put them up there in place of Dabo, you got to win these games because I'm kind of more of the belief that Mario Cristobal is the fourth best head coach in college football. I know it sounds absolutely insane to say that right now, but like I think his EQ is off the charts, and I think Sark's really good, but he's got to prove it. So that's like up with Texas. At number 9, can George Godsey hold a candle to what Buster Faulkner did at Georgia Tech? This is, I think, Brent Key taking over at Georgia Tech from within, replacing the buffoon in the rain that is Jeff Collins, has rose the ceiling or has risen the floor of Georgia Tech in a way that I haven't seen since what George O'Leary was the head coach. But as far as the ceiling is concerned, are we kind of at it at this point? But Buster Faulkner left to go take over, be the offensive coordinator at Florida. He brought with him Aaron Philo, the quarterback who was expected to replace Haynes King in Atlanta. So Haynes King's gone off to the NFL. He's not going to get drafted, but that's okay. We can still enjoy him for what he was as a college football player, regardless of that. Um, so you're bringing George Godsey. Not only does George Godsey have to replace Buster Faulkner, but Godsey played there. He was a star quarterback, if you will, who played for George O'Leary in the post Joe Hamilton years. So again, maybe he's built for it. He is a Bill O'Brien disciple. Learn from him on the Patriots, Texans, what have you. But you also got Alberto Mendoza coming in over from Indiana, and that's going to be interesting because, to be completely honest with you, as my phone's acting up because I knew it was bound to do that at some point. When it comes to all this, the pieces coming in together there with Georgia Tech, like, is it going to fit perfectly? We're also talking about Georgia Tech losing two really good coordinators in back-to-back years. You lose Tyler Santucci to the Baltimore Ravens on defense last year. You lose Buster Faulkner to Florida. I'll say this. Can Georgia Tech win the ACC? Yes. I don't think they're ever going to win a national championship because even if you have a great galvanizing head coach like like Brent Key, when you lose your two rock star coordinators, you pay a price for it. I mean, look at me with Georgia. We haven't effectively replaced Todd Monken or Dan Lanning. That's just the way it is. Even though Mike Bobo and Clint Schumann are really good, very frustrating, but really good, it's not the same. And on that note, let's move up to number 8. What if Miami doesn't win the ACC? Now I think this is a little bit more bigger of a deal than Texas not winning the SEC. And here's why. Look, Miami went to the national championship. They got to that stage. They recruit at a phenomenal level, both out of high school and in the portal. That's kind of what they're about. They've got the right head coach there, I think, in Mario Cristobal. They've got two unbelievable coordinators in Shannon Dawson on offense and Corey Heatherman on defense. But you haven't won the ACC since you joined the ACC. The last time you won a conference championship, you were in the old Big East. And because if you don't win the ACC this year, when's it ever going to happen? I think that's significant because look, there's a handful of other teams that could do it. Maybe Georgia Tech. I would say if it's not Miami, it's probably going to be SMU with Brett Lashley and Kevin Jennings for together for a third year. Louisville's really good. Pitt, we'll see what happens with them. NC State could have one of those great years we always wish and hope. Clemson's obviously always there. Florida State can't be down forever. You get what I'm saying. Like this seems to be like one of those years where like you got to do it. Like even more so than Clemson being ahead of Miami last year. There were people talking about Miami a year ago. It's like, you know what? I think this is a playoff team. I didn't quite get there, but it became very apparent early on that they were. So this is just kind of more of like an identity and a culture thing. I think that they're going to be able to do it, but if they don't, man, I'll have some questions. At number seven, I've got TCU seems to be way behind on the NIL game. And I think that could hurt the Horned Frogs a ton. I forget exactly what reel I saw. I forget exactly what it did, but I tied this thought together. They lose Josh Hoover to Indiana, and I'll touch on him here in a little bit. You lose him to Indiana. You're 3 years removed from the Hypno Toad, Sonny Dykes teams with Max Duggan playing in a national championship. Conference realignments happened, and the world's turned to left you here. We are now in a new Big 12 where Texas Tech is just drilling like there's no tomorrow. You've got Arizona State playing really good football. Also, Utah's in your league. And even though the teams that we thought were going to dominate the new Big 12, whether that would be Kansas State and Oklahoma State, they haven't. We know that Houston has a boatload of money. We know that UCF will eventually figure it out. Um, like I said, Houston's got a lot of money. BYU's also in this league too. Also, your biggest rival, Baylor, they'll spend more than you. So I think when you're getting far behind in the NIL game, particularly in a state where there's no income tax, you kind of wonder if, the TCU brand has faded because like they battled so hard to get back to respectability in the early 2000s under Gary Patterson. Like what you have to remember is they were Power Four. They were effectively on that level or what we would deem that as, in the old Southwest Conference. But they didn't think that they deserved to be in the Big 12 more than Baylor did. And they went to the really the new Conference USA, and they had to battle, they had to scratch, they had to claw, they had to make it all happen. And maybe eventually they did do it, but you know, it's a private school. You can figure this out. You have boosters, maybe not the biggest alumni base, but you got to figure this out. And number six, I've mentioned this already. Are we overlooking Oregon losing both of its star coordinators? I think we might be. Look, I think we knew that Will Stein coming back for one more year, like that was a blessing. We kind of thought he could have gotten a head coaching opportunity ahead of last year. Didn't do it. He ended up going back home to Kentucky, even though he's from Louisville, played Louisville. I think he gets what they're trying to do there in Lexington. Tosh Lapoy is a guy who'd kind of been, tied to coaching opportunities for a while, has an NFL background. His alma mater of Cal opened up. Seems like a logical fit. The reason why I think this is significant, I think this is actually going to be the reason why Oregon's not going to win a national championship. And even though maybe Dane Lanning wins Coach of the Year, maybe Baltimore wins the Heisman, maybe they win the Big Ten. I'm not quite there yet with that. But when push comes to shove, and there's going to be a time and a place where coaching is going to have to matter, and Dane Lanning is going to have to lean on his guys. He doesn't have the same guys there. And I think this hurts Oregon more so defensively. On offense, it's kind of run its course, or we'll know who their new OC is here soon enough. We'll know about them by name. We'll mention them on the show, and then they'll figure it out because Dan Lanning will empower them. But on defense, like if the Ducks aren't stopping whoever they play, he's going to have to step in, and that second of not being fully locked in is going to cost him. So yeah, I think that's significant there for Oregon. Five down, five to go. Number five, is this just Penn State's new lot in life after conference realignment? I've been thinking about this. So you fire James Franklin not even a year after, winning multiple playoff games. Granted, you beat SMU at home and then you beat Boise State. Like that's not wins are wins, but that's like the Patriots winning. They're out to the Super Bowl this whole season. Like the Chargers, the Texans, and then the Broncos without Bo Nix. Like just the finesse crap. You bring in Matt Campbell, who basically brings everybody over from Iowa State. You're like, okay, can we take what kind of worked there in Ames and replicate that and bring that to Happy Valley? And if you can, great. And if you can't, what does that mean? I've talked with Cody about this on previous episodes. We've talked about realignment, like this most recent way. We're talking basically the stuff that starts with, Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, USC and UCLA, Washington, Oregon going to the Big Ten, like that way for realignment. We said in the Big Ten and the SEC that the program in the Big Ten that was going to benefit the most from realignment was Penn State. And the SEC, it was going to be Ole Miss. And the two that we thought were going to be hurt the most were going to be Kentucky, and we thought it was going to be Iowa hurt the most in the Big Ten. And while we were absolutely right, and this is proven true in the SEC with Ole Miss being so much better, not playing the SEC West, and Kentucky being worse, not having an SEC East to bank on, uh, Penn State hasn't been the team that's benefited the most from realignment in the Big Ten. It's actually been Indiana, if you can believe it or not. And then the team that's actually done the worst is not Wisconsin. I think it actually is it's Wisconsin. As Freudian slip there. Yeah, it's not Iowa. But look, if you're Penn State right now, like you ask yourself this: how many teams in the Big Ten are better than Penn State? Can you name three? Sure. Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. Can you name six? Can you name three more? I like USC. I like Michigan a lot more, and I think Iowa is steadier than them. Can you name nine? And see that right there, when you get down to the gist of it, where you're talking about Nebraska, when you're talking about Washington, when you're talking about teams in that realm, that's where Penn State falls right now. And again, maybe they can climb up and overcome that. But when you're in that area, like right now, like that basically means if you make the playoff, you're one and done and you're not doing much of that. And again, maybe this is just Penn State's lot in life now. At number four, I think Alex Golish trying to win at Auburn with South Florida players is a choice. Look, I understand he won a lot in Tampa at South Florida. This is a job that his predecessor, Jeff Scott, didn't win it at all. He won like 4 games in like 3 years. It was a disaster. And Golish goes to Auburn. He's got all the financial backing he needs from all their big pocketed boosters. And again, seems like a likable guy. Seems like a good, wholesome individual, which Auburn needs more of. Like I need more, like we all need more money in our paycheck, and we all need more hope and more air to breathe and whatnot. Um, Even though I think Byron Brown's going to have success there at Auburn, I think when you see the talent that left with Golish coming in and Hugh Freeze going out, like that talent's going to go somewhere else. More importantly, you don't have that. And I think, like, look, maybe you saw some players from Indiana leave when Kurt Signetti came in with his JMU guys. This is different. This feels we're not talking about a 60-something head coach who's, got a system figured out. We're talking about a guy who's in his late 30s, early 40s, who's been a head coach for 3 years at South Florida. And even though he did a really good job at South Florida, I always kind of felt with Golish, I'm like, you can never win that game that would get you to the playoff. And again, I understand that South Florida played in a level that only had one, but like they could have won the group of five. I wanted them to, just never quite did. Could. So, and then also Auburn's going to play at Georgia and at Alabama this year. I think the ceiling for this team in an absolute best case scenario is 9-3. You're looking probably at 7-5 team. And I feel like maybe 8-4 split the difference here, but I'd be concerned. At number three, did Utah make the right call by promoting Morgan Scalley from within? I think in time they'll probably were, but I'll say this: it was going to be this in some way, shape, or form. The problem is, I don't think the transition was smooth. They kind of forced Kyle Whittingham's resignation, and he ends up going to Michigan, where he's got better resources and a chip on his shoulder more so than ever. Look, anytime you promote the likable, long, loyal assistant, it usually doesn't work out. We call that a bunch of Jim Lambright nonsense on this show. I mean, Kyle Whittingham replaced Urban Meyer, but Urban Meyer had only been at Utah for 2 years. Kyle Whittingham was there for more than 2 decades. And even though I think Utah is on the short list of teams that could win the Big 12, not named Texas Tech, you've got Devin Dampier, you got all this. I'm just kind of the belief that when it comes to this move, like if you look at Utah and you look at Michigan, are they both playoff contenders? Absolutely. Do I have them both in the playoff field right now? No. But if I were to do my top 25, I'd probably have Michigan at like my first team out at like 13. And then I'd probably have Utah like 16, 17, 18. You get what I'm saying? Like all I wanted was Kyle Whittingham to lead Utah to the playoff before he retired. Never got to do that. Maybe he gets to do that at Michigan. And I will say though, if he does that the next 4 years before he does sail off into the sunset and Utah does get there, they're going to feel pretty stupid thinking like, maybe we should have stuck it out for, a quarter century with our guy. All right, number two, what if it goes bad for Lenore Sellers again at South Carolina? Look, Dow Loggins is going to be entering year two as the head coach at App State. The Mike Shula offense was a disaster. And then you have coming in there is Kendall Briles. There's a lot at stake for South Carolina. I think people are thinking like, okay, maybe this is a fringe top 25 team. Maybe they can crack the playoff here. I saw that team in person a year ago at the Chick-fil-A kickoff or the Aflac kickoff. Just not the same. Just not the same team. Very disjointed. And no wonder that, Virginia Tech fired its coach. The only reason South Carolina won is because they played Beamer ball. And I'll say this, for as much fun as Cody and I had following along with Lenora Sellers 2 years ago, it was not that this past year. And if you put 2 bad years in a row and you chose to stay at South Carolina, your judgment goes into question. And if that's the case, you're kind of going to be, he's going to be one of those what could have been sort of cases. And I don't want that. He makes college football fun. I don't necessarily know if South Carolina makes college football fun right now. And then number one with a bullet. We got to slow down with Josh Hoover being as good as Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. We got to just chill. I've seen him have the third best Heisman odds behind Arch Manning and CJ Carr. I saw another article that said that, Josh Hoover is going to be the number one overall pick in 27 after Mendoza goes number one overall in 26. Like the last time we saw two players from the same program do it was Baker Mayfield in 18 and Kyler Murray in 19 out of Oklahoma. Look, Hoover's really talented. He played 3 years at TCU, but he didn't start any of the years. He didn't start the year that they went to the national championship. He threw for a lot of yards. TCU has been good, but they haven't really resonated or gotten above the fray too much in the Big 12. That league's been up for grabs. Why didn't they take it? And then I understand he kind of fits the mold of like experienced, accurate passer that Cignetti can lean on. And I think he'll have success. I think he'll be a very good player. I think he has a chance of being a first round pick for sure. But I'm not going to crown him just yet because look, we didn't do that with Mendoza coming over. We didn't do that with Curtis Rourke either. We just kind of knew like these guys are good players and they're going to be good college players for these teams. Mendoza's done stuff that's like unbelievable. I think really the big thing is like how do you replace the most enthusiastic guy of all time? I wish Josh Hoover nothing but the best, but like some of this praise and stuff for him right now, it's just getting out of hand. We just got to cut the shit. And on that note, let's move to our next topic. We're going to rebrand this because it's no longer a group of five for fighting because it's now the group of six because the Pac-12 is back, baby. So, in the spirit of Kings of Leon, the group of six is on fire. One day I'll sing it, but I'm in a different place I don't live and I want people to look at me, but that's okay. North Dakota State is joining the Mountain West in football. Couldn't be more excited about that. This is a team that we've long wanted to leave FCS behind and bring, the Fargo Dome into FBS and everything like that. They're gonna file for like I don't know if an injunction is the word, but like they're gonna do what JMU did. It's like, you know what? If we have a winning record, we're gonna go to a bowl game. And you can't tell us not to. If we make the playoff, we're gonna go. I love to see programs that want to step up and play on the stage. There's plenty of room here. Hell, we saw two group of five teams make the playoff last year. It's a group of six now. And North Dakota State joins a new Mountain West. And again, everybody with state in their name that was in the Mountain West, with the exception of San Jose State, is now going to be in the Pac-12. So you've got you got North Dakota State is football only, and then you've also got Northern Illinois coming over for the MAC and football only as well. You also have Air Force, Wyoming, New Mexico, UNLV, Nevada. I'm blanking on whatever, but it's a 10-team league. They're going to play a 9-game conference schedule and everything like that. So I think it's going to be a good time, and I'm excited because I think this also probably says South Dakota State's probably next up. They're the next two to watch. We've seen other teams move up recently: Kennesaw State, Missouri State, Delaware, James Madison, Sam Houston. Like, look, if you want to do this and you want to go for it, I mean, Sacramento State is just dying to go Division I FCS. If you want to do it, make it happen. There's more money to be had than there ever has been. If you want to find a way to get more scholarship players out there, that's great. Do it. Figure out a way. I applaud North Dakota State for joining the ranks because, the longer that they would have stayed and competed at FCS when so many other teams are making the jump ahead of them, that surprised me. And once we kind of got to like past Liberty, I'm like, okay, what are we doing? They don't have a history of North Dakota State. Like North Dakota State should be playing in the same sort of league as like Boise State. Like if they can do it, why can't you? And more importantly, they have history. They are a brand. People know who they are, and it's going to be great. And I'm excited for the Mountain West moving forward, 100%. Um, and I guess I don't have to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on this with this part. Let's move probably the shortest segment of all time here. Let's move on to our fourth topic of the day with some do Hast or do Hast. Will the Mountain West be the team to win the group of six next year? Do Hast 1S. I'm all about this, man. I'm all about this because look, I mentioned this on a previous episode, like six or eight teams that I think are contenders for it out of the group of six. You know who plays in the Mountain West? New Mexico and UNLV. Hawaii does too. And the North Dakota State's coming in. I think if you're going to be listing 10 teams that could safely do it, again, you throw Boise State, you throw Appalachian State, you throw Memphis in there, Navy, if you will. Like what we've seen out of, like what we've seen out of UNLV the last 3 years. We saw it in New Mexico last year. We saw Hawaii try to do towards the end of last year. And what North Dakota State's been able to do historically, like I think they've got more bites of the apple. In a way, like I feel maybe not as strongly, but like last year, like the Americans going to get it because like Tulane, Memphis, UTSA, programs like that, they're going to find a way. And I think right now, if I'm going to be like honest with you, like I'm kind of leaning UNLV. That's the easy way out because like Dan Mullen's the head coach and feels like they're competing at a different level. But man, wouldn't that be cool if Hawaii did it? I saw somewhere that Hawaii only plays in bowl games, like either the Hawaii Bowl or that one Sugar Bowl. They played Georgia with Colt McCoy, with the late Colt Byrne at quarterback. That'd be absolutely wild. And then Jason Eck, who should be the head coach of Wisconsin, he and his son, who's the linebacker, his son's name's like Braxton or something like that. Something really trendy, something really nice. Uh, the Lobos, man, I don't ever remember New Mexico being like they were like they had an outside shot at making the playoff this past year, man. What a world! And Kennesaw State might be really good too out of CUSA. And the MAC, Western Michigan was the team that I really liked. Ohio U is always really good, even though they just changed their coach out. But I mean, I look across the board here, like I don't know how many leagues you can go three or four deep. Like, I think they can do it. And I'm a little excited. I know we're talking a little bit G6 stuff here, but want to get this new segment going. I figured out how to introduce your group of sixes on fire, but like also whenever the G6 thing is going to be doing, fly like a G6. Maybe that could have been something we could have done here. We're gonna hit the Follow Award, the Follow G6. That's that is so unbelievably dumb. So let's get on to our penultimate topic here with some four for four. Who do I think is the most underrated head coach in each Power Four league? And again, I have two in each one in case Cody and I overlap, but I'll share both. In the ACC, I think the most underrated head coach is Jeff Brom. He won at Purdue. Nobody wins at Purdue. He goes to Louisville. He's made Louisville likable. Louisville's never been likable. It's always been a very seedy, dirty program. But not on his watch. He's made it a huge difference. He's also elevates his quarterbacks. What he had, Jack Plummer, you had Miller Moss, you're bringing in Lincoln Kienholz to Louisville. And I think one of these years you're going to win the ACC and you're going to make the playoff. Like Louisville's a program under him where I'm like, they could be a playoff team. I don't necessarily know if they can win a national championship, but they're doing more things right. They got to get better on defense. But when you have Jeff Brom as your head coach and a savvy offensive mind, his kid brother Brian Braun's on the staff too. When you have, what's the word I'm looking for? When you have a stabilizing presence like Brom, who kind of puts out the fires. And again, I know he was tied to the Michigan job for a while, and that kind of got gross and everything like that. But I, I'm a big fan of what he could do. The guy that I had for runner up, believe it or not, was Pat Narduzzi. I think he just wins on his own terms. I think he wins in situations and stuff that like Bet Michigan State wishes they still had him around. Uh, he doesn't really respect quarterbacks. Occasionally, he'll stumble into a good one, but I don't know if Mason Heinzel is going to be as good as Kenny Pickett was, but the guy wins a lot of games, and I know that like his personality is really incredibly abrasive. He basically is the guy who will tell you to kiss his ass. But we've had our colleague Mark Powell on the show before, way back in the day. He's like, hey, he's the winningest head coach I've seen in a while. So I think there's some method to the madness there in our Doozy land with Nard Dog. But if you go to the Big Ten, this isn't really hard. You probably would venture to guess you would say here. Most underrated head coach there in the Big Ten is PJ Fleck, followed by Brett Bielema. Minnesota just does not have the resources, but PJ Fleck finds a way to win around 7 or 8, 9 games a year. There's one year where they won 10 games pre-COVID and he won a lot at Western Michigan. I think he can take the program to like what its new ceiling is. And again, he just has a pretty good pulse for what he's doing here. He's a guy that I thought like if and when the opportunity strikes for him to be leading a major Power Two program, like like I always thought Michigan would have been a good fit for him. Like if Nebraska were to open up and he went there, I think you could do unbelievable things there. I think he's just yes, the row the boat shtick is sticky, but I would say the Matt Rule stuff, just Matt Rule sucks all the oxygen out of the room. They flex phenomenal. And then Brett Bielema won a phenomenal level at Wisconsin, had Arkansas being competitive when most people didn't. Then he's had Illinois being incredibly competitive in a way that we haven't really seen him in a while. You also look, Wisconsin probably wishes they had him. Arkansas probably wishes he had him. And Illinois is damn happy to have him. Maybe he's the guy that replaces Kirk Ferentz when it's all done at Iowa. But this is a guy who's got Big Ten energy coursing through his veins like a coronary bypass. Knows offense, knows defense, really just gets buy-in from his players. I think he's just a genuinely likable guy. I think there's things about him that like just a footballer, just a manly man. And I think parents and players gravitate towards that. And again, he's kind of a galvanizing force. When you have a coach like that, you can do great things. And he's done great things at all three places. Maybe not Arkansas so much, but I mean, we're forever chasing the ghost that is Houston Nutt and God, what's his name? Darren McFadden, running back. Moving on to the Big 12. I think the most underrated head coach in the country is Kalani Sitake. And I've got Brent Brennan, Colt Brennan's cousin, as the number two. Kalani Sitake was almost the pick for Penn State, but they had the crumble cookie money came in, and that prevented all of that. And I think Kalani Sitake it was very controversial when they moved on from Bronco Mendenhall, but they knew this guy was going to be good. He played there. He played fullback there, and I don't think BYU would be where it is right now as a program, where they're like a playoff contender this early into being a Power Four team without him. Phenomenal coach. He might. I mean, there's a chance he could be top four. Again, that spot beyond Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, and Kurt Staley is up for grabs. Maybe he could reach out and take it. Brent Brennan also wanted a hard place to play, San Jose State, and now he's starting to kind of win there at Arizona. We'll see what he does, in the post Noah Fifita world. Maybe he's still back. Yeah, I don't really remember, but he got the team back to what it was playing under the Jed Fish Pop year, and I think this is pretty good. This is a guy that like, was a UCLA guy, played wide receiver there. I think he's going to use Arizona to get one more big job. I don't know what that is at some point, but he's making it work right now. And then the SEC, I think the most underrated head coach is Eli Drinkwitz. And honestly, I think now Josh Heupel is a little bit underrated. Eli Drinkwitz is the second longest tenured SEC head coach beyond Kirby Smart. He's been there since 2020. Heupel a year later in 2021. That's wild to think about. Drink one at App State after a year. He learned from Gus Malzahn, Arkansas guy at Auburn. Kind of a raging nerd on the sidelines. Doesn't ever going to beat Georgia, but I think he likes to run the football. And I think when Mizzou can run the football with conviction, has somewhat moderately quarterback play. I think they can make it work. Defensive line is usually always really strong. That's kind of in the ethos of Mizzou football. I kind of wonder what he's going to do with the bigger and better job at some point. Like I don't see him finishing his career at Mizzou. I don't know when that comes, but he will. I think he's ready for the next opportunity, but I think this is the year that he makes it happen. And then Josh Heupel, I mean, how bad was Tennessee prior to him getting there? Had some strong years there with UCF as well. I harpoon him all the time about his gimmicky air raid offense, but it works. It elevates the ceiling for Tennessee. I think he's got a very keen eye for defensive minds. I think Tim Banks is still really good. Alex Kalesh was under him. He was able to get Jim Knowles in. And again, you got to deal with the nonsense that is. He's got a really good boss there in Danny White, but you also got to deal with the big pocketed booster that is Jimmy Haslam. So I think those are my underrated head coaches across college football. And let's get out of here with our final segment here with some guys, member, and dudes. Again, I wanted to do local scouting report with Cody so badly, but just didn't get to it. Wasn't gonna do it because well, we were saving him. So I'm gonna get you three guys here that I fondly remember. Let's start with this: Western Michigan wide receiver Corey Davis. This was the star player on that Western Michigan team, I think in 2016, that won the group of five, that got to play in the New Year's Six. I think they lost to Wisconsin. They went 12 and 0. And this is like the PJ Fleck year. This is the player, he went like five to the Titans, but they didn't know what they were doing. But this is a player that, like, sometimes at that level, he was so sensational. Like, you're always gonna remember that player, that team, that year. Like, just I always, when I think of Western Michigan, I always think what Corey Davis was always about. Let's see, I'll do three more. I'll get another one out here, a couple more that are good. Group of six here about Nevada linebacker Brock Hecking. I don't know if he was good, but he had a mullet that was just to die for. It was basically like if Brian Bosworth was his illegitimate father. Just like Nevada was terrible, but that dude had really rocket flow. I remember another guy who could really rock it too. How about Georgia tight end Isaac Nauta? I wrote about this for Dawn of the Dog with Todd Hartley coming back to his alma mater to be the tight ends coach. I think he was at Miami for a little bit too. But Isaac Nauta, I think, was like the first like tight end, I think, kind of that era, maybe a little bit later, who like blue chipper, like went to Buford High School, went to the IMG Academy, had like the really tacky barbed wire cross tattoo on his arm. Thought this guy, I think, went to the Lions. Thought he was gonna be a much better pro, but he walked he walked so Brock Bowers could teleport. Um, there were a lot of really good tight ends there when I was at Georgia. I think Leonard Pope initially, um, you know, Orson Charles, Artie Lynch a little bit too, as well. And we kind of got away from that. And now, obviously, you have Oscar Delp off to the NFL. Brock Bowers is in the NFL. Darnell Washington's in the NFL. We'll see what Lawson Lucky is going to do. But Isaac Nutter, I think, kind of was like the first kind of in that line of transitional period. And I'm really proud of what he did. And the last guy, I got to save the best for last. Texas Tech wide receiver Michael Crabtree. When we talk about legends of the game, we talk about legends at their respective schools. Michael Crabtree was a really good player in the NFL for the 49ers and Raiders, but he's a legend at Texas Tech. We're talking about like one of the four best players in Texas Tech history without going by. Probably the best player to ever play for Mike Leach. Yes, you had a bunch of those quarterbacks like Graham Harrell and BJ Simons and Sonny Cumby just slinging it around there in the air raid, but Crabtree was a separating factor. They had that huge win over Texas very late in the season. It was one of those ones that went upset that I always remember, like in '08, I guess maybe '08 or '07, something like that, where like very early college, very late high school, and that kind of era of college football. But that's the thing, and that's part of the beautiful part of college football is there could be a guy who's just good in the NFL, but he's a legend at his respective school. It's very rarely, even Matthew Stafford, like absolute gun at Georgia, had a better NFL career. Tom Brady has had a better NFL career. It goes either way. It's really, really, really hard to be both. And it's really, really hard to co-host by yourself 4 episodes in a row because this was episode 250 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at X at Buhler118. You can follow my absent co-host, Cody Williams, at the Sizzle 20. You can follow along with the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Cody's missed 4 episodes in a row, but probably not going to miss 5. We're going to be coming to you guys semi-live here on Sunday. Going to go out on Monday. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about. We're going to go to Bucky's with the Arizona State podcast. He's going to tell me about the Super Bowl. I'm going to tell him about my adventures of Dog City because this is life. This is what you got to do. Hold your horses. We're almost there. Friday the 13th will be here before you know it. And this is False Start.